Yeah, welcome back to listen to Radio Live Morning Talk. 7 minutes past 11. We've been talking about transparency and openness and whistleblowing and all these sort of things this morning. A very interesting chat with Bryce Edwards. But Dunedin South MP Clare Curran is now in a position to have a huge influence on these matters in New Zealand life because, as Associate State Services Minister, one of her responsibilities is open government. She's talked about this in the past. She's been a big advocate for making improvements to the Official Information Act. And Clare Curran joins us now. Good morning to you.
G'day.
Hey, look, it's fair to say you always have been an advocate for more openness and transparency in government. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
So what are you going to be doing now? You've got your hands on the levers of power.
Okay, well, I guess the first thing, and I just want to couch it in these terms, that one of the reasons I came into politics is that I thought that there was this cynicism that ordinary citizens felt towards politicians and to politics in general, and I think it's got worse even in the time that I've been in Parliament, not just in New Zealand, it's happening around the world. Big thing is, how do you bring more trust in that relationship? So one of the things is ensuring that information, that government, the business of government, that information is provided more proactively. So that's number one, Mark, and obviously can't make all these things happen in 4 weeks. We've only been, I was sworn in 4 weeks ago, but that's top of the agenda, really. It's called proactive release of information, looking at protocols around that. The next thing is around how do you ensure that people who blow the whistle, who actually, have got stories to tell about bad practices and bad things that are happening, aren't going to be penalised just because they've put their hands up. We really do have to do reform in that area. And the other thing is around privacy, is the citizens' rights to privacy. Those would be the 3 top things on the agenda.
Well, listen, that's encouraging to hear. I mean, the whistleblower one, I mean, we've had, various goes at, different things and trying to do it. I mean, you look at that Ministry of Transport case, with Joanne Harrison, and, it was couched a bit, but basically the people who blew the whistle on that were punished.
That's right. And look, we've got a piece of legislation. I bet nobody knows what it's called. It's called the Protected Disclosures Act. It's really used. It's really complicated. It's hard. Nobody, even if people do know about it, it's so complicated and weird that people can't use it. And the thing, in the modern environment that we're in, people are finding, we've got, really talented people out in the community that, have a go at trying to, get into government, to test government websites, for instance, as to how robust they are. Now, if they discover there are holes in those websites, which has happened, and they bring that information forward, they get penalised under the previous regime and called, in fact, Judith Collins actually called them burglars and hackers, when they were really just trying to draw attention properly to the fact that there was a gaping hole in one of the government's websites. We have to provide safe places. I mean, obviously, if they are getting in and they are doing damage, that's a different case. That is breaking the law. That's really damaging. But if they're trying to draw attention to problems that are out there, we do have to provide safe mechanisms where people can report these things, and where systems aren't working out, like the or bad practices within a government agency.
But see, here's the dilemma for you, isn't it, Clare Curran? Is that and look, I applaud you if this is the attitude you're going to take. I think it's fantastic. But if you're going to start protecting whistleblowers and make it easy for this to happen, you're the ones who may be on the receiving end of that, as a government, as a government.
Right. And this might be a curious thing, for people, but shouldn't government behave in the best ethically possible way? Isn't that going to go to the trust relationship between citizens and government? Call me an idealist, Mark, but and I'm not the only one in this new government. It's coming from the very top. Jacinda Ardern has said, we want to be a government that does things differently. We do want to be more open and transparent. I mean, yes, we have to practice what we preach, and you're going to judge us on this. But, I've been working on these matters for 9 years in opposition. There are a lot of people in the community who want to help and assist. wouldn't it be good if we could actually demonstrate we could do it better?
I know, and listen, I'm sorry, I apologise for laughing, because this is what we've come to, Clare Curran. We've now come to the point where we think, someone starts saying, well, isn't this what a government should be doing? We should be open and honest and transparent, and this is a good thing. We're going, yeah, but no one ever does that, so, we don't, there is that, maybe that's exactly what you pointed to before. There is a cynicism, because, we've seen it time and time again, governments end up protecting their own asses.
That's right. And, look, I acknowledge everything you're saying. It's not, none of us are going to be perfect at it. How about we talk again in 6 months' time, and you can say, okay, so what have you done?
I'm going to book that. I'd love to do that, Clare Curran. I'd love to do. And yes, it's quite right. I mean, I've been watching some amusement this thing, and people going, oh, look, Labor, there's the government out of control already. Well, hang on a minute, they've been there 4 weeks. Give them a chance. Although one area, and Bryce Edwards raised this when I spoke to him this morning, the sort of the 38-page or the 33-page coalition agreement that Winston Peters said existed, people are saying, well, hang on a minute, there seems to be a bit of resistance. There's a bit of pushback on releasing that. Is this a sign of things to come?
Well, no, because actually there is, the agreement got released, the coalition agreement, the things that the government has signed up to, the things that we've budgeted for, the things that we will do together as a coalition government, all of that's been released. If there were other things being discussed, as I'm sure there were, I don't know what they were, then none of those things have been agreed to. So they're not part of an agreement. And I think the Prime Minister has described them as notes. This is not part of an agreement. So it's not, it's not anything official. Yeah. And therefore, that's all I've got to say on that.
All right. But don't forget, it was the Deputy Prime Minister, it was Winston Peters, who raised this, who put it out there, and also said this will get released at some time. That then created the expectation, and then everyone's going, oh, hang on, what's going on? Are they now trying to shut this down? Are they as bad as every other lot?
No, well, I don't think it is about trying to shut anything down. It's just that what we have agreed to is what the coalition agreement is, and everything on that has been released. And, and I have to say it's become a bit of a Bible, and we have to make sure that that's the document that is the glue that makes us stick together as a government.
But Clare Curran, as Associate Minister of State Services in charge of open government, you're telling us here and now that your whole government is committed to transparency, is committed to openness, and you will be looking at ways of making that even more open and accountable.
Absolutely. And number one, all the briefings to the incoming ministers looks like they're all going to be released all at once next week, just as a demonstration of that.
You see...
And that's number one. The next is the protocols for how we do the release of cabinet papers, those sorts of things in the future.
See, I remember, although you see that in itself, you'll cop this a bit. You'll cop it over the BIMs, the briefings for the incoming ministers, because when you release them all on the same day, it's sort of like it's those massive dumps. I mean, governments have done this for as long. I can remember the entire time I've been covering Parliament and stuff. You dump out a whole lot of information. Say, look, we're being transparent, we're putting it all out there, but it's almost too much for people to take in,
Oh, I think, any journalist worth their salt will be going through those briefings, as will the opposition members, and if there are stories to be told, then they will come out over the coming weeks. Yeah. It gives the journalists something to write about over the summer period.
And don't forget, you as an opposition MP, you would have come up against the problems of the Official Information Act and people stalling and whatever. I mean, it is disgraceful. And to be honest, this last government did it, and so did the previous one. And the one before that, I mean, all parties tend to succumb to it. So, look, I think if you're going to remain vigilant on this stuff, I think that is fantastic. But it would defy the practice of just everyone who's gone before you, though.
Well, please hold me to account. I have already met with the Ombudsman. I have to say that
he's good, isn't he? I like this.
He is fantastic. He's done a lot of thinking. One of the things that I've been really pleased about is coming into government and seeing that the senior public servants are thinking about this, rethinking how to do things better. So I feel as if I've got very cooperative ears on this and eyes as to what we can do to ensure that we are providing information out there, that we're doing it proactively, that people aren't having to battle to get into the system, to find out, to get, having to wait a year to get crucial information on something. This is not right. This is not the way a democracy should function. I do want to make a special mention actually about Bryce Edwards, because he's part of Transparency International, the New Zealand branch of that. He has been, along with the rest of them in Transparency International, been pushing this barrow for a long time. We want to work with them to make sure that we are going to try to have much better practices around a whole lot of transparency measures where we can be held to account on. I know it can be a bit uncomfortable, but, I do want to be the standard bearer for that.
Well, as a board member myself, I'm very appreciative of hearing that, actually, Clare Curran. Hey, look, thank you so much. And listen, and thank you for being willing to be accountable. I will talk to you. We're going to put it in our diary. 6 months' time, let's do a stock take, because I think this is one of the most important issues that any government faces, and how they handle this really determines how they handle everything else. So, I'm delighted to hear your enthusiasm.
Thanks, and it's a date.
All right, good on you. Yes, Dunedin South MP Clare Curran. More importantly, though, she's not just a minister; she's the Minister of Broadcasting, Communications, etc. But she's also Associate Minister for the State Services with the responsibility for open government. So she is the one that we will call to account, and we will talk to her again. When we come back, though, more of your calls. We're getting back, and what are you doing? Where's your key hidden? Coming back to that when we come back after this brief message. We're going to hear from Mary Jane. You're listening to Radio Live Morning Talk. It has just gone 19 minutes past 11.